We want to ask you a couple of questions around the thought process of ideation and how you conceptualize different thoughts to get to your end product. So, the first question we've all talked about the Israeli approach to problem solving. Is it different? What does it look like? Or maybe describe what it looks like for you, and we'll get a sense if it's different for us.
Well, there were a lot of things said about, the Israeli approach towards problem solving and innovation. I think that one word in particular is suitable here, which is chaos. You have a lot of chaos in the company, and you allow everyone to speak, and you allow everyone to attack. For instance, in large organizations, every position is like, it's like a building block. You have a position, you have your cubicle, you do what you have, you don't really look for the other guy's work. In an Israeli startup, everything is like Play-Doh. You encourage people to look at other people's jobs and to comment and to come with ideas. So this I think is very material. And it's coupled with some sort of an out-of-the-box thinking that is accompanied by lack of resources. I mean, if you come to a corporate here in the US, a Fortune 500, and they need to tackle a problem, they will put 200 engineers for 6 months to do the problem. But in Israel, you have like 2 engineers, you have 2 weeks to solve the problem. What do you do? So they have not to go the straight way, but to look for shortcuts. And the shortcuts are the innovation and are the thing that in the end of the day brings the value to the company.
So is that nature or nurture? Like how does that all evolve? How did that happen?
I think both. I mean, in Israel, I don't think, once we've been a poor country, okay? I don't think that that's the story anymore. But I think it's, it comes out of a concept also from the army. You don't have everything you need. You have some things, and you need to do the things with whatever you have, and you need to do them. It's a can-do approach.
Tell us a little about Mobileye's think tank and how you guys develop concepts and new products.
So first of all, whoever doesn't know Mobileye, Mobileye is an Israeli company founded in 1999 and focused on manufacturing and research and development of collision avoidance systems for the automotive industry, eventually evolved into an autonomous vehicles technology manufacturer and researcher. IPO was in 2014, and I think it's today one of the largest companies in Israel doing high-tech and a very prominent name. So in Mobileye, what we did is the same thing, essentially. We took a different approach towards the problem. The problem was you wanted to take a car and you wanted to make the car see what happens around it. And all the other companies, and I'm talking about huge companies like Bosch, billions of dollars in revenue, Continental, they said, okay, we need to have a radar or we need to have a camera. But if we have a camera, we need to have 2 cameras. Why? Because if you have 2 cameras, you have like 3-dimensional perception of what goes outside. Like you have 2 eyes, you need to have 2 cameras. And Mobileye came and said, no, you don't have to have 2 cameras. Why 2 cameras? It's problematic. You need to have 2 cameras. It's ugly. It's twice the hardware, more susceptible to problems and malfunctions. Let's have 1 camera. Why? Because a driver with 1 eye can drive. The response was laughter. They thought in the initial years that we were the laughing joke of the industry. An Israeli startup working on a single camera, yes, they are not laughing anymore. Because when you have a single camera and when you can do whatever you can do with a single camera that can detect other things on the road, then you have a much stronger position for sales. And the company also evolved towards other things within the process of being a prominent player in the automotive industry.
So on to your new venture, Neteera. How did you come up with a thought process, and what problem are you trying to solve with that?
So as all the good things, the problems that we realized are in the market came from potential customers. What we saw is that the cars are evolving, and the cars can, all of a sudden, the cars can see. Car is a relatively simple, I wouldn't say simple, but it's a straightforward mechanism. It's a box with an engine and some chairs inside, okay, and wheels, and it can go around. And all of a sudden, the cars were able to see what happens in the outside. Other lanes, trucks, buses, pedestrians. But there was one thing that the cars could not see, which is the inside. The cars could not know what happens with the driver or with the vehicle's occupants. And the car manufacturers tried to solve that problem for many years and couldn't solve it. And when I'm saying we is the founders of Neteera, when we started to tackle that problem, we understood that this is not only a problem for the automotive market. It's an inherent problem in a lot of markets. If you want to measure the individual, if you want to know what happens with yourself, you have a problem. Either you have something that penetrates the body, that you have to draw blood, or you have something that has to be attached to the body constantly, and even then, you have a very high false rate. So we took a different approach. We said, okay, connecting to the body doesn't work. Apple tried to tackle it with Apple Watch. They had billions of dollars thrown on it and hundreds of engineers, and it's working nice. We are looking for something that is absolutely staggering, and we said, let's tackle it with a two-pronged approach. One is we don't want to be attached to the body. Let's sense information out of the human body remotely. And second, if we can do it remotely, we don't have to carry the sensor around. The sensor can wait for us in different locations. It can wait for us in the car. It can wait for us at the chair where we work. It can wait for us at the laptop, or it can wait for us, at the bed at the house. And then measure us and give us, the right things instead of us having to carry it around, charging it, etc. To do that, we started to look for technologies that can allow us. The idea was, let's not invent the wheel. Let's take the existing sensors and see what out of them we can do remotely. If we can come with a different approach, out of the box thinking that we can do the same thing remotely. Why? Because then once we can do it remotely, we don't have to reinvent everything. And we found that, in our body we have the nerve system that influences the sweating system. And the sweating system influences the skin. You don't have to sweat in order for everything to take place. And there are technologies today that measures the electrodermal activity, the conductiveness of the skin, and that gives an indication, for instance, lie detector. Another, it's called GSR, galvanic skin response, and it exists for decades. But it has to be attached to the body very strictly. Every movement creates friction. And we said, let's do it remotely. And in order to do it remotely, instead of measuring the skin, let's go directly to the sweating system. And the sweating system, apparently only in humans, has a very peculiar shape and structure. It looks like a coil, the sweat duct. And the coil resembles a helical antenna. So we said we have in our body between 2 and 5 million helical antennas, which are not, of course, they are not working as antennas by definition, but they have the potential. And by measuring them remotely, even from 5 centimeters, we take out the need to be attached to the body, and we are getting the same results and better. Why? Because we don't have to measure something that is influenced by something. We go to the source. We go to the sweating mechanism, and it's outstanding. The results are staggering.
So what are you able to measure? Give us some examples.
So for instance, we can measure identification, because we see the distribution of the sweat ducts, of the sweat glands in your body. We have between 2 and 5 million sweat glands. For instance, at the forehead, every square centimeter has 250 sweat glands. So even if we are looking at 4 square centimeters, it's 1,000 points. It's a pattern that is unique for every individual. So we can identify someone remotely and non-invasively, even if he wears a hat, because that technology, that frequency band, it's called sub-terahertz, penetrates clothes. So we can measure it from the forehead, from the back. We can see identification from the back. Nobody can do it so far. Then the other things are, we can see stress. We can see inhibition if a person is falling asleep or if he's under the influence of alcohol. So taking it together, think about getting into your car, and your car can identify you and then can measure, are you under the influence, or are you going to fall asleep? Or think about you coming into the US, and at the border crossing, the police officer sees who you are, and also he sees if your stress levels are beyond norm. So are you a terrorist? Are you under false identification, etc.? And that's something that does not exist today.
Just from sweat?
Not from sweat. From the sweating system responds to your being, to how you act.
That's amazing. That's amazing. How did you move from Mobileye to Neteera?
It's a very good question, and to leave a company that is very successful. I moved to the US in 2012 to build all the infrastructure here and to prepare for the IPO, and I left around the IPO. And just before the IPO, I had to give the title back and to become a consultant. Why? Because we didn't want to announce after the IPO that the CEO is leaving. So on one hand, it was a painful process, but on the other, I knew that Mobileye is successful. Mobileye has done it, and I felt in my DNA, in my guts, I felt that I need to do more things, and I need to take other things to success. So I decided to make the switch and to go to the next adventure.
So one last question. There's a bunch of entrepreneurs here, Israeli, Miami entrepreneurs. You've started a bunch of businesses, you've grown them, you've seen the ups and downs. 3 words of wisdoms or thoughts.
3 words is...
three thoughts of wisdom, no words.
First of all, I think that we are talking about innovativeness. Every business, even if it's a pizzeria, and I don't think that most of them are pizzerias here, needs to have some sort of an innovation of renewal process in the business. And it's not a one-time process. It's an ongoing. It's a monthly discussion. What do we do? What do we do wrong? How can we improve? How can we improve and how can we become better? This is one thing. The second thing is it has to be a team work. Not only the managers, bring the people that are the youngest, the newest, the least experienced. They come sometimes, they are not, in the woods. They come with a 30,000 feet. They just came in. They see things differently. And thirdly, make sure that you hear those guys that say no. Encourage the no-sayers. Encourage the people who argue. When I see people in the company arguing about things and saying, no, it doesn't work, yes, it doesn't work, and they argue between themselves, I'm very happy. Why? Because it means that the outcome, the result will be the best. I don't want to develop something that is not working. I want them to argue. I want them to share ideas. I want them to be open, because in the end of the day, the result will be a more distilled and fine-tuned product.
So innovate, collaborate, and have naysayers who are arguing and care about the company.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Thank you for having me.